Welcome to The PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. Welcome back to The PA is In. Today's episode is going to be all about a day in the life of an aesthetic surgery. So I do aesthetics and plastic surgery. I get a lot of questions about what I do on a daily basis. So today is a day in the life of an aesthetics PA. I have my notes here. So we're doing old school today. So first, how I became to be a PA in aesthetics and plastic surgery. So if you're new here, my background is in general surgery. I did general surgery for 5 years at the very beginning of my career, first in a small community hospital, then in a large university health network. Then I made a move from general surgery to robotic urology, where I was an inpatient-based urology PA, doing robots, inpatient rounding, managing our census of urology patients. So that is my pathway to before I was a plastic surgery PA. Then one day in the PACU, one of my plastic surgeons that I just knew said, "Hey, what do plastic surgery PAs make?" And the rest is history. I tell that story in episode 172, the importance of networking. And maybe I will do a future episode. I feel like there are a lot of people who want to get into aesthetics, dermatology, plastic surgery, and a lot of those positions ask you to have experience. So a common question that I get is like, how do you get experience if everyone is asking you to have experience? So message me on Instagram at Mrs. Tracy Bingaman if you think that an episode on how to get into aesthetics, derm, or plastics would be helpful and something that you're interested in doing. I digress. Here's my current schedule as a plastics aesthetics PA. Let me back up. When I first started as a plastic surgery PA, I was working full-time 4 days a week. I then adjusted my schedule to be 3 longer days and 1 shorter day a week. I used to have Tuesdays off originally because that was the schedule when the most of my surgeons were in the office and we didn't have a great exam room set up for me. Then it went to Mondays off, so I would work Tuesday, shorter day Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And now I'm technically part-time, so I work a half day Wednesday, 9 to 3. I work Thursday, 7:30 to 5, and I work Friday, 7:30 to 4. I used to do more plastic surgery. I would see our postoperative patients. I would troubleshoot patients while my surgeons were in the OR, pull drains, remove sutures, drain seromas, hematomas, do ER coverage, and fix lacerations in cosmetically sensitive areas that the ER would call plastics for. And now my role has shifted to be primarily aesthetics. So by aesthetics, I mean threads, Sculptra, Radius, fillers, hyaluronic acid fillers, botox, facial evaluation of these patients, do a full facial evaluation, give my treatment recommendations, perform procedures, operating totally independently in the office, most days without surgeons there. Well, some days, it depends on their OR block schedule. So on my longer days, when I have 9 or 10 hours in the office, I'm seeing anywhere from 15 to 20 patients. I have a medical assistant who helps me to room patients, turn my room over. And on my shorter days, I'm there 6 hours. I probably see like 8 to 12, 14 on the outside if I'm seeing a lot of Botox, shorter visits, established patients. My consults are longer. So when I see someone for the first time and we're doing that full facial evaluation, talking about their treatment goals, putting together like a multi-step treatment plan, multimodality, what we would do when, those visits take longer, 45 minutes to an hour. If I'm seeing an established Botox patient I've been seeing for a long time, we don't really need to change a whole lot, treating them 15 minutes to 30 minutes, depending on their just Botox or a Botox and filler patient. So let's take a Thursday day in the life. So I get up early. I've always been a morning person. If you've ever listened to my episodes on morning routine, I freaking love the morning. So much so that when I was in college, I made friends with the janitor at the gym so that I could get in technically before the gym opened. If anyone from DeSales is listening, I guess it's probably too late to punish me. I've been out of school for like 15 years. So morning routine, I am usually up between 4 and 4:30. I spend time alone if I can swing it and then my kids wake up. Depends if my husband's working from home or not, what time he gets up. But I get up, I drink a glass of water, I put on my workout clothes, I come down to my office, I journal, I read a self-development book, I do some meditation. Those are my first three things that I do. And then I will work on work. I will write podcast episodes like this one, answer emails, set things up, correspond with coaching clients, whatever I'm going to do work-wise. And then at 5:30, I work out. I will run on the treadmill, ride our stationary bike, do a lifting workout. I like Peloton. I do hardcore on the floor. And then at that point, that takes me from 5:30 to 6 or 6:30, depending on the day, what time I have to get to the office. If I'm getting to the office for 7, I will normally start my workout at 5, be done by 6. I will get myself ready. Dan will get my daughter ready. And then we'll take off for daycare around 6:30. It takes about half an hour to get there, do the drop off, and then get to the office, which puts me at walking in the door right around 7. I try to be there 30 minutes before my first patient. When I get there, I eat breakfast at the office. So I'll get a big glass of water, get my breakfast, sit down with my schedule for the day. My MA preps it the night before and tells me who needs a consent, who's getting what for Botox. But I like to know, I like to see who's coming in. So I run the list. Anyone who's new, I highlight. Anyone who needs a consent, I circle. I have this like code of what I do to my schedule. So I'll write down what they had for Botox, when their last treatment was, if they've ever had fillers, if there's anything that we've talked about in previous visits for a potential treatment that we're going to do now, I will write that down. So I run the list. And then I prep my neuromodulators. So I will get Botox, Juvederm, Dysport, whatever I'm going to use that day, pull it out of the fridge, reconstitute it for what I'm going to use for that day. So say I have 20 patients and 10 of them are Botox patients and they're averaging 40 units. I'll prep 400 units of Botox and we put it on ice so that I can draw it up as patients come in. I will touch base with my MA. So I'll say, this person needs photos, this person needs this person needs a consent, and you said they didn't. So we'll sort of have like a little huddle right before my first patient gets there. First patient is 7:30. And then I will see patients all day. So this is something that, as an aesthetics provider, I'm a little embarrassed to say was like a preconceived notion of mine, or something that I didn't really fully appreciate before I started this job. Quite honestly, I was coming from traditional medicine. I was coming from a job that was super high stress, where I had sick patients with cancers, big tumors, like multiple medical comorbidities, where we were doing massive open and laparoscopic and robotic procedures, where I was primarily managing them in the hospital. Inside the OR, my job was very technically challenging. I would get called for the cases that were complicated partial nephrectomies, where they needed you to clamp the renal artery, take a clamp off when you were the only one scrubbed and your surgeon was in the corner. Personally, some of my favorite cases, super high stress, like very, like you need to be technically on it. No room for error between that renal artery and the aorta, like very concerned for like clamping, like maintaining the kidney, gutting it out, controlling bleeding, sewing it up, passing suture. Those 25 minutes were like the most exciting and most stressful minutes of my week. So I thought when I went into aesthetics and plastic surgery, listen, and I actually remember saying this before I got my job, if I can clamp a renal artery, I can Botox a forehead, which is true. However, every forehead is different, anatomically is different. Every patient's desires are different. So there is so much that goes into the consult, and getting to know your patients and asking them what they want and figuring out what their treatment goals are, and really saying, hey, your diagnosis is static forehead righted. So lines in your forehead that don't go away even when you're not moving. The treatment for that is X. The cost is Y. all of what I do is cash, not covered by insurance. So there's this like totally different aspect of sales and marketing and brand differentiation, all of these things that as a PA working inpatient, I didn't have to market myself at all other than to my employer, which is like a whole different kind of marketing. So there were all of these skills that I didn't know, that I didn't have, that I would need, that I've spent the last couple of years in aesthetics figuring out how to structure a consult, how to do an evaluation, how to make sure a patient's at too high risk for something, how to evaluate someone's past surgical history, how to see if they've reacted well or poorly to things in the past, to create a treatment plan, to feel confident about telling them this is what you need and this is how much it costs. And then there's this aspect of anatomy and the technical aspects of injecting safely, of injecting effectively, of injecting enough but not too much, of giving them the look that they want with the amount of movement that they want. Honestly, aesthetics is so much more complicated than it seems from the outside looking in. So I have done more learning, more training, more CME, more personal research and investigation, more trial and error, more adapting my specific clinical practice as an aesthetics PA than I ever did before in these areas of surgery. The world of aesthetics is constantly changing. There are new products, there are new modalities, there are new ways to use the existing products, there are new approaches. Patients come in like, hey, I saw this on TikTok, and I'm like, I've never heard of that. Can we try it? Well, what's the anatomy? Like, what's the safety profile? Has it been studied? And so I do feel like it's an area that people say like, oh, it's aesthetics. Like, yes, it's aesthetics. It's real medical procedures that have real potential complications. If you're going to go to someone who does aesthetics, you want to go to someone who does a high volume, to someone who feels comfortable with their anatomy, to someone who can tell you the real risks and complications. You need to do an informed consent about each procedure. People need to understand the real risks of ptosis and vascular occlusion and blindness and stroke and all of these things. And just like traditional medical treatments, you can phrase this in a way that your patients feel comfortable. They know that there's potential complications. They know that these things happen, but that they're in good hands, that you have great statistics and really great outcomes, and your patients are very happy. It has been an interesting journey for me going from traditional medicine to aesthetics. So I sort of went off on a tirade there, but I will see my morning chunk of patients. I will have lunch and dictate notes, type up, make sure that all my morning stuff is done. And then we launch into afternoon schedule, which is pretty much the same. Tons of variety. I see patients from ages 18 to in their 80s, people from different budgets, different areas of life, different treatment goals, different things that bother them. And here is one thing that I really want to talk about. And we touched on this a little on a prior episode where I interviewed my friend Melissa Kolowitz about how what we do is tied in with our identity. So when I was working in urology, I was working 55 to 60 hours a week. I didn't work weekends. I was averaging 12 plus hours a day, even on weeks when I wasn't on call. The patient load was so heavy. We didn't have enough human resources. I was one of 2 inpatient providers at that group out of like 15 or 14 at the time. So when you have a department that's massive, 25 providers, 10 offices, 6 plus hospitals, and you are in the minority, it's hard to get this critical mass behind change. And I would say this isn't sustainable. We can't keep working like this. And everyone would say like, keep up the good work. Nothing really changed. So I quit. So I got burned out and I quit. And I had been working PRN for this plastic surgeon. So I called him and I said, hey, would you be ready for a full-time provider? Would you be ready for a full-time PA, either plastics or aesthetics? And he said, like, let me see what I can do. I'm going to talk to the partners and kind of get ready. And during that time frame, right leading up until when I quit, I had talked to one of my surgeons and I said, hey, I have this PRN position with a plastic surgeon. There might be an opportunity for a position there. It would be a better quality of life. This is what I would be doing. Kind of the details that I had, I shared with them. And they said, what a loss that you're going to go waste your skills on something as superficial as aesthetics. So that had happened. And then also earlier in my career, I'd been talking to a mentor of mine, someone whose opinion really mattered to me. And they were talking about a PA program they were really proud of that was focusing on PAs going into primary care and going back home to their communities to serve underserved communities. And they said, we're not building a program that is pumping out PAs that are going to go into surgical subspecialties like plastics. And at the time, I can't remember if I was in general surgery or urology at the time, but I wasn't a plastics provider. So I didn't feel like offended by that, but I sort of filed it away in my mind and went about my life. And then I had this opportunity to become a plastic surgery aesthetics PA. And I had to reconcile these two people whose opinions I very much valued, who had kind of said, that's a waste, or it's not valuable, or it's not a good use of your skills to do plastic surgery, particularly cosmetic plastics or aesthetics. And I have grappled with this over the last couple of years of the aspect of this isn't saving lives. I'm not curing cancer. I'm not treating hypertension. I'm not managing lifestyle modifications. But what I am doing is helping my patients, who are the majority of them women, to feel better about themselves, to be more confident. And I truly believe that confident women, particularly, but confident people in general, show up differently in the world. I think they show up differently at work and in the boardroom and in their relationships and in the way that they aren't as timid and that they are more confident. And I think confidence is powerful. And I've struggled with my own self-confidence and even with putting things like this out into the world, that anytime you put yourself out there, you have the opportunity to be judged by other people. But my favorite part, two things. Number one is the confidence that my patients feel about themselves once they've been treated, about something that's bothered them about their face or their appearance, about something that we can improve or soften or tweak. That confidence has a ripple effect, and that it affects the people that they see, and it affects the things in their life that they are doing, and it affects them applying for a job or negotiating for more money or showing up well for their kids or showing their kids a certain way that they can be strong and confident in the world. My second part, so this is going to surprise you based on my surgically strong career. In high school, I was 16 and I decided I wanted to be a pharmacist. This is a little bit of a tangent, but it's kind of entertaining because my sister is a pharmacist. So my older sister is 18 months older than me, 2 years ahead of me in school, had decided she wanted to be a pharmacist, applied to pharmacy school, had just gotten accepted. So she was a senior and I was maybe a sophomore. My parents started talking to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a pharmacist. And they said, why? And I said, well, because Audrey's going to be a pharmacist and I like science and math. Why wouldn't I want to be a pharmacist? And so my mom, in all of her infinite wisdom, sent me to job shadow. So job shadowed pharmacist, clinically in the hospital, and retail, like at our local grocery store. And I think I sort of missed what they were doing. I didn't really get it, what they were doing when it came to medications. I didn't really understand the importance of what they were doing. And I was quite honestly a little bit bored. The person in the hospital didn't see any patients at all. And the person in retail kind of only saw patients that needed like medical counseling or had complaints. They were calling insurance companies. They were on the phone a lot. They were cross-checking medications. Very busy, like very important job, which my sister loves. She's been on the podcast in the past. And so I said to my mom, I don't want to be a pharmacist. And my mom sort of knew that. I think she knew that really wasn't what I wanted to do. And so my mom said, hey, I've heard about this thing. It's called being a PA. It's like a doctor, but not. I think how she described it 20 years ago. And I think you should check it out. So I was doing this shadowing project for a class, and I got into my primary care office had a PA, and then there was a PA in our local super small town ER. These guys' names were Greg in the ER at Reddington Fairview Hospital in the middle of nowhere, Maine, and Sarah, who was the PA at my like family medicine office. So I went in and I shadowed them. The ER was incredible. We sutured up a laceration of this older gentleman's foot. He had slipped and fallen on the track of his shower and got a laceration between his big toe and his next toe. And I got to open, this is such a tangent, some suture onto a sterile field. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was freaking out. I was so excited to be part of like this process and take care of him. And we made him better. And he was so grateful. And the PA was so awesome and so engaging. And then the PA in the family medicine office got to know people over time. And she spoke so beautifully about these relationships that she had with people, where she got to see them and she saw them as kids and she saw them as adults and she saw them grow up, and she was, took care of them when they were born and when they were their grandparents, and this real kind of like family, knowing people, cultivating relationships over time with her patients. That to me was so awesome. And I'm a people person and I love to connect with people. So I was like, I want to do family medicine. I wrote my like acceptance essay or my personal statement for applying to college about how I wanted to be a family practice PA. I applied for like PA scholarships for people who wanted to go into family medicine. And then I got to PA school, did my first year, went out on rotation. Family medicine was one of my early ones. ER was like the first one. Then I went to family medicine. And I just didn't love the content of the medicine. I loved the relationships that family medicine providers or primary care providers had with their patients. I didn't love managing all of the things. So I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And then I did a general surgery rotation and I stepped inside the OR and I never wanted to leave. And so I did OR for surgery for the first 8 years of my career. All of this to say, the thing that I really missed from that acute care surgery or inpatient only aspect was that I didn't develop relationships with patients over time. They would get admitted. Certainly, I would develop a short-term relationship and rapport with them while I was doing their consult, getting them to the OR, getting them discharged with their catheter, whatever I was doing. But I didn't get to see Mr. Smith over time. I didn't get to see Mrs. Smith over time. And the thing about aesthetics is I see patients regularly. Most of my patients I see every 3 or 4 months. I get to know them and their lives, and when they get job changes or get married or their kids get married or have babies or they retire, or they get a promotion or they, move, or they have these wonderful things happening as a part of their lives. And I get to be a part of that. I am a trusted provider of theirs that they see regularly. It's such a humbling experience to walk in a room for a consult and to have this opportunity to get to know someone and for them to tell you their insecurities and their confidences and why they want to feel better about a particular aspect about their face. And for them in a relatively short amount of time to say, like, I trust you. I am okay with you putting needles in my face. It is a very wonderful thing to be able to do. And I love that relationship aspect. I feel like I was missing that in the first 8 years of my career when I was in acute care and I didn't see people over time, or rarely did I see people over time. So that is one of my favorite aspects. So I love helping patients to feel more confident about themselves. And I love that I get to cultivate this awesome relationship with my patients over time, and that they are trusting and that they trust me with the beautiful, beautiful thing that is their face. So those are my favorite parts. And one of my hardest parts of making this transition from sort of traditional medicine, general surgery, urology, like regular medicine, into aesthetics and plastic surgery was reconciling my identity as a provider. And so I still think of myself as a surgery PA. I still perform procedures. And I think I will be a surgery PA until I die. It is how I identify. It is how I see myself. And this is a different iteration of that. And I had to say to myself, it is not a cop-out. It doesn't make you less of a PA. It doesn't mean you're serving patients any less. It's different. It's not worse. And that was hard for me. There was a big part of my identity that was tied up in the acuity of what I was doing, in the specific medicine that I was doing, in the badass things that I was doing in the OR. And a lot of my self-worth was from that. And I had to realize that what I do for work is but a small part of the way that I show up in the world. It's a small piece of who I am. It is important. It is something that I love. And I think it's important to enjoy what you do, but also you are not exclusively defined by what you do at work, by your specialty, and you are not valuable as a human being inherently because of what you do. You are valuable, period. You are enough, period. You are worthy of making great money, of having tons of fulfillment, of having an amazing life, and it doesn't matter what specialty you work in. It doesn't matter if you practice clinically or in academia or in industry. You are serving patients in a very specific way. You are serving the community in a very specific way. And that way that you serve the world does not define you. It is okay to love what you do. And it is also okay to have a job where everything is not perfect, but the schedule serves your family in this time. And you don't like, oh, it's the best specialty ever. I love it. I want to do it till I die. Like, it can be a temporary thing. And you are not defined by your job, by its acuity, by who you see, by how many hours that you work. Literally anything that you can think of that is a specific about your schedule, a specific thing about your job, a specific thing about your role. You are so much more than that. And I know that because I have had to reconcile who I am and what I do and how I show up in the world, and that there are ways to serve the world outside of your job. There are different ways to serve the world inside of your job, and that you are not your job. Your job is something that you do. It is not who you are. And that was hard for me. And I still occasionally struggle with it when I hear people talking about what they do inside of their sort of traditional medicine, traditional surgery roles. I still have a little bit of envy. And I think that there's room for both. There's room for both love and acceptance of ourselves, love and acceptance of our current stage of life, of our current job, and also missing what you used to have. You don't have to be 100% happy and fulfilled 100% of the time. I think that's a very unreasonable expectation. If this is something that you are struggling with, if you're struggling to reconcile whether you should leave a job or not, if you're struggling to find your place in this weird world of medicine, if you're struggling with feeling like you're not living up to your potential or operating at the top of your license, if you want to know if it's time to leave a toxic environment, or even if it's not that toxic, but you just feel pulled and called to make a change and you want someone to walk through that with you, that is coaching that I do. I have been through so many different things as a part of this medical world, and I love to work with PAs just like you, who are navigating change, who are trying to decide between two jobs, who are trying to make a change, who are reconciling their identity and figuring out who they are. There's two different ways that you can work with me. One is a quick negotiation consult, decision consult if you're trying to decide between two jobs, 45 minutes to an hour, or ongoing coaching where we meet once a week and talk about what's going on and figure out what you think is the best move based on your values, based on your vision for your life, based on the dreams that you have for yourself, which might not be lining up with where you are currently in medicine. I would be honored for the opportunity to work with you. Shoot me an email at themoneypa@gmail.com. I will put the links to be able to schedule for a consult, which is free, or a negotiation call. Book a consult if you're thinking about one-on-one coaching and you want to know if we would be a good fit. I'd be happy to talk to you. It's complimentary. See if it's a good fit. Or book a negotiation call so I can help you walk through that decision, figure out which job is best for you. I will see you next time. Congratulations, you've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.